Well, the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act sunset in 2026. We've been getting this question quite a bit because obviously we've just had some recent news where we have a Republican president, Republican Congress, and what it looks like a Republican House at the time of this filming. And so based on all of that, well, now we're going to probably see more of the Republican policies get pushed through, which we're going to share today and share some details of why, but we think that there could be a good chance that the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act is extended, which is great news for those who are in or near retirement. So let's break this down throughout the video here today.
Joe knows taxes.
Joe knows the market.
Joe knows Social Security.
Joe knows income planning.
Joe knows pickleball? No.
This is Joe Knows Retirement.
So up until the election, we had calls from people all across the country with, hey, can we interview you to talk about what you think of the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act if President Trump gets in or President Harris gets in? And it's just speculation, right? But now we actually have clearer picture and more certainty of what we can do moving forward. And this is great news because you obviously saw in the markets right after the election, the markets went up tremendously the day after the election. And the reason why is because certainty. There's so much uncertainty when you have two presidents who are polar opposites, two totally different policies. They are trying to go in two totally different directions. And so this is an opportunity where now people can say, all right, I know what to expect. A lot of people out there are trusting Trump's policies right now that they think it's going to do well for the economy. And so because of that, now they're going to say, hey, let's get back into the market. We feel that businesses are going to have a clearer path moving forward. We feel like that taxes are going to be lesser for businesses, which means they can fuel more into their businesses, which ultimately can fuel the economy. They feel like with the immigration that's going to get under control. They feel like with the tariffs, they have some hope with that. So all these different factors can give some people certainty. And now I do want to make it very clear with this video, we never want to make emotional decisions. We're mostly going to be talking about taxes in this, but since I just mentioned the market, from an investment planning standpoint, always look at the market and investing in growth type investments like the stock market as a long-term gain. And something that we always preach to our clients to say, if we're going to need money in the next 3, 5, or 10 years, depending on how conservative or aggressive they are, well, we may want to make sure that money's protected. If we're going to need the money for long term, hey, we could probably utilize the stock market no matter who's the president, no matter what's going on in the economy. If you have a long-term picture, if you zoom out, right, whenever things are bad, just zoom out and look at the market, what it's done over historically, and typically, in the future, that's what our hope is that it's going to continue to go up. And so just keep that in mind as you build out your retirement plans. Based on who's in office, over time is what our goal is. Because again, President Trump's going to be in office for 4 years, and then we're going to be back to the drawing board of, hey, what are things going to look like the next 4 years? And so that's something we want everyone to understand. So as far as the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act goes, this is set to sunset in 2026. So basically before the election was, if Trump gets in, there's a good chance that can get extended. If Kamala gets in, there's a good chance that is probably going to change and tax rates are going up because her policies were in favor of higher taxes. And so now we know that, hey, there's a good chance that it can get passed. Now, again, it has to get passed. And so having the Republican Congress, Republican House helps a ton in this because now more things can get pushed through. But I do want to make it very, very clear that most policies, tax policies especially, that President enacts do not get followed through on. Or some of it gets followed through, but not all of it is typically the case. Let's just go back and look at Biden's tax proposal. He wanted to get so much pushed in place. He wanted to step up in cost basis to go away. He wanted to, raise taxes and get away from the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act even before 2026. They wanted to raise taxes on those making $400,000 or more. There's just all these proposals in place, and really nothing got done. And so we're right back to where we were right before Biden got in from a tax standpoint. The Tax Cuts and Jobs Act that President Trump enacted in his last term is still the case here today. So, you've heard Trump propose all these things as, hey, Social Security, tax-free. I don't know if that's going to happen. I don't believe that's going to happen. And one of the reasons is because Social Security is in big trouble already. And so where are they going to get the revenue to make this work? People paying tax on their Social Security helps keep that afloat. By 2033, 2034, 2035, Social Security is set to run out depending on which year you see it and which report you see. And so, hey, I don't know if that happens. Now, we would love that for the people we work with, right, to have the Social Security tax-free, that would add thousands of dollars of income for them that they wouldn't have to worry about. That would be pretty generous, especially with the people we work with who are more diligent savers, who are going to find their Social Security probably almost fully taxable, which is 85% of that can be counted as income due to the provisional income. And so if they were to go away with that, that would be great. Understand who that would help. That would help more of those diligent savers, those hard workers, those people who've done the right thing over all their years, those who have higher incomes throughout their retirement. Those who maybe don't have as much saved or are just living on Social Security and that's it. Well, the lower income, they're not going to really be impacted at all because they're already having Social Security tax-free. But Trump's proposal is, hey, if we can get this tax-free for most retirees, now they're going to be willing to spend more. Now that we're not going to have to rely on, helping them as much throughout their retirement, and it can just be more beneficial. But again, I don't know if that's going to pass considering the current state of Social Security. And remember, Social Security, when it started, was not meant to do what it is today. Social Security started in 1935. The life expectancy was not where it is today. People may only live till 62 on average. And at that point, you only had to pay out for a few years. Where now people could be living until their 90s and Social Security has to pay out for 30 years at this point. And so that's where this has become a big concern. But there's also less people working today and paying into it. Back in 1935, there was a lot more people paying into it than there is now. I think there's like 3-to-1 people paying into it now, whereas back when it started, it was like 40-to-1. And so you can see that we just don't have the right environment to make Social Security work as well as it did starting out. Just times have changed. So, again, this is just a matter of numbers and math and how it works. There's other taxes that Trump has talked about going away with, like the SALT cap. So the SALT cap could be beneficial. Again, this is something where state and local taxes are capped right now. So if you are paying a lot in state and local taxes, you can't itemize your deductions as much because there's a cap. Now, if they remove that cap, like Trump's made it known he wants to do, now you're going to have more opportunity to itemize versus taking a standard deduction. So 90% of people take the standard deduction. But again, if you're high income, you could take the itemize and now you can get more tax write-offs, which lowers your taxes down the road. So I think this one is likely to get passed. Trump's made this pretty known. Again, this only impacts high income earners. But again, Trump's initiative is, hey, this is going to help fuel the economy because the highest income earners are responsible for the economy's fuel, and also they're already paying the most taxes already. This is giving them tax breaks to be able to, again, do what they want to do with that money. And obviously the big one around town is the taxes on tips and overtime, right? And so, those have a chance of going through. I don't really have a strong conviction either way of what happens. I think the taxes on tips, no taxes on tips, I think that's more realistic because that's going to impact those who are not necessarily lower income, but maybe that middle class where it's going to be very favorable for them hardworking people. And I think Trump values that. And so I think that could be something that gets passed. As far as no tax on overtime, I like the idea. I think that's smart. Again, me, the Midwestern millionaire is something that we work with. That's the crowd we work with, hardworking people who have been frugal and have just done all the right things over the years. And we call them middle class millionaire. And for those people, they've probably worked a lot of overtime in their life. I'll tell you, I've probably worked a couple hours of overtime in my life. And so because of that, you're rewarding that initiative. And I think that's how the country needs to run. I think the country needs to value hard work and doing the right thing. I don't think our country should value not working hard. And it's why in my book, I Hate Taxes, I talk about a lot of these concepts where I don't want to pay more than my fair share in taxes because I don't want to help those who are not working as hard as me. Now, don't get me wrong. I give money to charities. I provide for support for certain organizations to provide for those who are just not able to make money, or maybe they are in the lower income because of unfortunate situations that they couldn't plan for. That's not where I'm going with this. Where I'm going with this is we're not valuing people working hard. Someone may be able to work and then they just decide not to. Well, who's that? Is that really doing the right things for the economy and for our country of not using our God-given talents? And time, treasure, talents is something we talk about all the time. How do we make sure we're utilizing that in the right way? And so again, anything we can do to value hard work, I think that U.S. was founded on hard work, and I think that if we can continue to make that known and valued, it's going to be important. But again, you don't have to elect me for the next president with some of these ideas and policies that I may look to implement. And another one Trump's mentioned is the auto loan deduction, again, this is really only something for the higher income, depending on if they allow it to be an itemized deduction or not an itemized. If it's not an itemized, everyone could take advantage of it, but if you look at like mortgage interest right now, would be itemized, so if it's going to work the same way. But also, this is only going to impact those who are buying cars who are worth more and have a loan on those that are paying, a higher amount of interest. But again, the purpose is to try to fuel the automobile industry and try to get some more people to buy cars to again fuel the economy. So could be a good addition to have. I think this is a good chance this one gets passed in some way, knowing that it's a lot simpler and it can be of value. So those are just some of the tax policies that Trump has mentioned in recent news. But I also want to talk about the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act a little further here, and another reason why I personally believe it will get extended. Again, I'm not confident 100% on that. We never should be, because the tax code's written in pencil. But I also believe that because if you go back to, let's just go back to the Obama administration. So obviously President Bush's tax policy was in place, which were lower. Obviously Obama's, more so for higher taxes. That administration decided to keep taxes low at Bush's level because they just didn't want to raise taxes. And a lot of people are like that. They just want to keep it going. It's working. People are comfortable with it. People are typically unhappy if their taxes are higher. And there's actually a stat out there that 62% of people, this is based on the Tax Foundation, 62% of people will have to pay on average $2,800 more in taxes. And so again, that middle class, higher net worth, they're going to end up paying they're going to get tax savings of $2,800 a year. Obviously, the lower class, they're not necessarily all going to have to pay more in taxes. It's just that some of them may not even be paying taxes at all, right? If you're just on Social Security, like many of our population, 60% of people out there have less than $1,000 in their bank account. Well, they're probably not going to even be paying taxes. They don't have to file a tax report because of the standard deduction, right? Right now, if you have $30,000 or less, around $30,000 or less, and you're married filing jointly of income, you're not having to pay taxes. And Social Security has its own calculation to get into that. But for most people, they're, if they don't have any investments and they're not working, they may not be in a situation where they're having to pay taxes. So again, that's where that number comes from. So just to give you an overview on all of that, that's our opinions on all of this. So when we do our planning for our clients, we always think out in the future from a tax planning perspective. And one key we always look at is, let's just think about the assets we have. We have tax deferred, we have tax free. Maybe we don't want to have all of our assets in one of those buckets. Maybe we want to look to have a balance. And I usually explain this as, right now, most people have all their money in tax deferred and very little in tax free. Less than 25% of people even have a Roth IRA. And, there's very little in the country compared to the tax deferred. And so I always ask people, hey, is that okay? Like, do we want to have all of our money in one bucket, or would we rather have more of a balance? And so I think that's something that, we're really encouraging a lot of our clients of is, hey, maybe we start shifting some of this tax deferred money over to the tax-free side, through strategies like a Roth conversion and other tax-free vehicles that we can implement now to get ahead of this. And I think that's key because right now tax rates are among historical lows. And so even if the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act expires or if it doesn't, these next 2 years of 2025 and 2026 are vital. We're seeing low tax rates that we can implement today. And we've been telling people about this since 2018 when the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act first set in, where taxes became lower. And most people are paying about 20% more in taxes if Tax Cuts and Jobs Act expires. And so, that's something to be paying attention to. But if this does extend for a few more years, the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, now we can just continue the tax plan for what we were doing these 2 years even longer, which is going to be beneficial for most people in or near retirement. And so that's something you just want to pay attention to. But regardless, even if the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act sunsets, it doesn't mean it's the end of the world. It just means we have to plan for that. And so again, for when we're building tax plans right now, I'd say we're leaning towards the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act extending, but we are also preparing either way to make sure that we can have a flexible plan. But again, remember, we're thinking 10 years out, 20 years out for some of these tax plans that, yes, the next, few years matter, but what are tax rates going to be in 40 years or 20 years, depending on your age, is really what we're looking at, because we have to have a long-term tax plan. And that's why, again, that diversification makes sense. And when you're looking at these types of strategies, it's all about paying tax at the least percentage possible. And so that's where we're seeing right now could be that could be the advantageous time to do so, knowing that, hey, right now, like I said, historically low tax rates, but also if you look back in time, tax rates have been much higher. And so even if the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act expires in the future, well, it's going to go back up at some point is our expectation, and so we want to make sure we plan for that. And if it doesn't, if it stays low all the time, that's great. And also understand too, taxes can go down. I don't necessarily expect that, knowing our current situation, but if they do, again, that's why it's great to have a balance, and then you can plan for that period of time. And remember, every 4 years, we're going to have a different agenda that's going to be pressed. And so that's why it's having the flexibility is so important. So hopefully today's video was informative to you to give you a better feel of what to expect with this Tax Cuts and Jobs Act coming up, but also what to expect from President Trump, from tax policy, and some of the things that he wants to get pushed ahead. So if you like this type of content, we do a lot of tax planning on this YouTube channel. We do a lot of talk on investment planning, a lot of talk on estate planning. And so if that's the type of content you're looking for, go ahead and subscribe. And also I'll do a free book giveaway for those who have stuck to this video to this point. I'll give away my I Hate Taxes book. So if you go into the description below, if you press that link, you'll be able to get a copy of our tax free toolkit, we call it. And then that's the book I wrote called I Hate Taxes, which talks about a lot of this stuff. So in that book, I really preface that the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act would expire because this was written a couple years ago, but understand that the content and the value there is still going to apply moving forward. So hopefully that can be helpful for you as you do your planning throughout your retirement.